Hi, welcome to FOF, Fred on Film, Fred Asquith on Film, and all other iterations of this title. We're back after a week off doing mysterious things that you may see on social media very, very soon. But you know what? It was a good time to take a week off because it was the post-mission frenzy. I got into mission. We all got into mission. I've crushed 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours of tape of just watching Tom Cruise chat. Tell the same stories to Ali Plum, Edith Bowman, every single junket. I just love movies. Yeah, look, do you know what? I've talked about Tom Cruise so much in the past few episodes, and I'm going to talk about him one more time in this episode at the end, because I know if you don't want to hear about Tom Cruise anymore, because I feel like the media's been saturated with Tom Cruise, you don't have to listen to the end, right? And I'm going to flag that. So I'm not going to do it at the start. So I actually want to open up by saying, I heard on the grapevine that the Golden Globes have added a best podcast category. Am I right? Am I right, guys? Hey, we're really doing stuff here. We're really doing something special with this podcast. I think I might have a seat at table 1 at the Golden Globes next year, next to Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner, for my nomination for Best Podcast, guys. Nominate me. I'm acting like this is like nominating your mate for deputy head boy at secondary school. Like you just give your geography teacher a little slip of paper. Look, chances are slim, but we can dream, can't we? Also, just a PSA, if anyone else messages me to tell me that I look like the police officer in the Fred and Rose West Netflix documentary, you're getting blocked. Oh God! Okay, you're not getting blocked. It's fine, but it's offensive, right? Here's what I think's happened. I can't look. I'm not even gonna put a fucking picture up of this or whatever. You've either seen it or you haven't. There's this police officer who is tall, ginger, with a mustache and a long nose. Like that's literally all he is. And people are saying he looks like me. He doesn't not look like me. Like I've had worse. I get hosier online all the time. People saying I look like Hosier. I don't think I have a great lookalike. Obviously, like you get the really complimentary ones like Ryan Gosling, which is equally not true, probably more so. I just think people love to say you look like someone based on very, very small elements. Like I have a reasonably defined mustache and this guy's red-haired with a reasonably defined mustache. And they're like, and I think, do you know what's happened? I think like the title of the show being Fred West and Rose West has actually Darren Browned people watching it, and so they've already got that name in their head when they're watching it, and there's not many Freds around, and so I think when that guy pops up, those two things crash inside their brain, and they're like, oh my God, it looks like Fred Asquith. It's just not true, right? It's just not true. I'm also not that ginger, and this is a big bugbear of mine. I have a ginger beard. I am a dusty blonde child. I'll show you pictures of me as a child. It was actually electric blonde, okay? I had bleach blonde hair, and the only thing that changed was that it's darkened with age, so it appears more red, and then I've grown a beardy mustache, which is admittedly very red. But my dad, who's a brunette, also has a red beard. No one calls him ginger. No one calls him ginger, lucky cunt, right? I'm ginger because I have blonde hair, and so people conflate the two. It's just not true, okay? So this is a whole lot of deeper issues we've unearthed here by people telling me I look like a police officer in a Fred West documentary. Even the association with such a bleak subject matter is bad enough in itself. Okay. I want to just build some anticipation for a couple of films coming out next month. I booked my tickets last week for 2 huge films coming. F1 and then 28 Years Later. And they are in subsequent weeks. So we've got F1 in the 2nd week of June and then 28 weeks later in the 3rd week of June. I think I've got that right. It might be the 3rd and 4th. And I booked tickets for both at the Odeon Lux Leicester Square. Opening day. Same fucking seat for both, right? You cinema spreadsheet heads out there, people who've been listening to this podcast, you know I've got a spreadsheet of all the seats of all the cinemas I've ever been to in London and which is the best one. And you best believe, I think it's D20 that I've gone for, which is on the aisle of the central section of the Odeon Lux Leicester Square. And do you know what's beautiful about picking that seat? When you look at the seat map, it seems like it's too close. So you actually don't get many people sat next to you. But those who know it's not too close, because the way the chair reclines, you actually have a direct view of the screen and you're closer to the speakers. So it's actually a very cinematic experience. And that's from me to you. Okay, if you go into the Odeon Lux Leicester Square screen 1, you actually don't need to be any further back than F at a push. Okay, that's just from me to you. I digress. F1, which is Joseph Kosinski's follow-up to Top Gun Maverick, filming Brad Pitt whizzing around in quote-unquote real F1 cars. How much real F1 driving he actually did at full speed, I'm not sure. Maybe he did a bit at half speed. You know what I mean? Stick him in the cockpit and put a green screen behind him, that kind of thing. But either way, or stunt people, whatever. Either way, I'm buzzing for F1. I don't think it's going to have the impact of Maverick financially or culturally. But F1 is huge at the moment. So maybe I take that back culturally. F1 is such a big deal. Like, it feels like the biggest cult ever. Like, so many people love and watch F1 since the Drive to Survive Netflix show. And so many random people you just wouldn't expect. Like, just like one of my best mates. He's really into F1 now because of Drive to Survive. And it just doesn't suit his character based on the 20 years that I've known him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're not an F1 guy, bro. But, all these people, they love F1 now, fine. And they'll all go see it, and it'll probably make $1 billion. Fantastic. Now, 28 years later, me and that same friend actually discussed our most anticipated films of the year at the start of the year. And 28 years later was my most anticipated, and still is. And what I'm most intrigued about is obviously Danny Boyle's coming back. I think I'm intrigued about Danny Boyle's filmmaking chops in his kind of latter career. He's not even really that old, but he's kind of mid to latter career. I think we haven't seen him really. I think I've got my Amazon delivery. Yeah, I think I've got an Amazon delivery. Wow, this guy's car is so full. Yeah, back in a sec. I feel like delivery drivers naturally, understandably, have like a very... they have a lot of animosity coming up to the door because their day must be full of going to doors, people not answering, taking ages to answer. I'm at the wrong door. It's currently raining right now. It must be such an aggravating job. And so I love to like undercut that animosity by opening the door even before they do the doorbell sometimes, or just as they do the doorbell, because I've spotted that they're there, and watching them be a bit like, oh, okay, well, I'm not allowed to be annoyed because you've opened the door. Like you kind of like diffuse their anger just for like 10 seconds. Random story. So yeah, and so the Danny Boyle's directing chops in his mid to latter career really interests me. I think that since Slumdog Millionaire, I don't think he's really proven what he can do, because I love that. Obviously, he's got his early era Shallow Grave, Trainspotting, unbelievable stuff. But then that mid-era, kind of 28 days later, leading up to Sunshine, is just, it's just beautiful, isn't it? And T2 Trainspotting was solid, but I didn't really like that film Trance. I just don't think that... It's kind of since London 2012 Olympics, isn't it? He's kind of lost his sparkle for me. Anyway, he's going back to this story after having handed it off for 28 weeks. In a lot of ways, I prefer 28 weeks to 28 days. But in a roundabout way, what intrigues me about 28 years is neither film is necessarily considered... Well, certainly not the weeks, but neither film is considered an all-time great, right? I think what we consider 28 days later to have done is revolutionize the zombie genre for sure, introducing fast zombies alongside, like Last of Us and what was the other one? I can't remember. But that like reinvigorated that genre for like a decade up until, I Am Legend with Will Smith and things like this. It also reinvigorated British cinema. You know, that imagery of him walking around the empty streets is something that will be in BAFTA montages till the end of time. I've forgotten what my point was. Oh yeah, but it's not considered an all-time great. It's not even considered really Danny Boyle's best film. And then the second film I thought was really successful at iterating on that in a way that was more commercial and more kind of Hollywood polished, but really stayed true to the spirit of the original without having to use the digicam camera work and without having to use the same characters. I thought it was really well done, considering that Danny Boyle wasn't at the helm. He directed one scene, apparently. And the opening in 28 Weeks is better than maybe any scene in 28 Days. So I have this kind of nostalgia for 28 Weeks. But 28 Years is coming out and appears to have the buzz akin to the buzz of, like, a new Bond movie or like a Top Gun Maverick, like of something that has a lot more cultural cachet than the 28 franchise actually does. Like, I feel like everyone who had a DVD player in the noughties had the 28 Days Later DVD because it looked fucking cool on your shelf for a start. But it's not talked about that much, you know. It's a very well done genre film, and a very good entry into an otherwise brilliant filmography of a filmmaker. I feel like it's lost in the genre. It's also lost in the era of very good British films, and it's also lost in Danny Boyle's filmography. So with this 28 Years later coming out and feeling like it's riding off the back of Alex Garland's growth as like a creative force and a commercial force since Ex Machina and recently Civil War and then Warfare, I think people see Alex Garland as like an entity in and of himself, whereas before he was kind of conjoined to Danny Boyle. I think riding on the back of that, and massively riding on the back of the Cillian Murphy wave, which is significant in the fact that we don't even know if he's in it, this film appears to be coming out to like quite a lot of, I was going to say hysteria, but more just like intrigue. I think people are more interested in this now than they would have been in 2010. Does that make sense? Like, it's almost like the time has allowed this brand and franchise to gestate in us millennials who all saw it when we were like 12 to be in something more than it probably actually is. And so it feels like a big event 28 years later coming out. And I'm also excited, but even I'm excited above and beyond my own opinion of the franchise. And I think in that sense, there is a real sense that 28 years later has a very, very, very good chance at being the best entry into the franchise, which feels like a weird thing to say, given that all we've seen is a trailer and a brilliant trailer mind. But given that, 28 Days Later is a brilliant film, do you get what I'm saying? It's a weird thing to say about a film that's coming out to so much anticipation that would suggest that the original films are extremely good, like all-time greats. But they're not. This third film is coming out into an environment where it could quite easily be the best film in the three. Like, quite easily. If they just land the plane on this and make a kind of post-Last of Us, but also quite nostalgic zombie flick, Ralph Fiennes looks like he's cooking, drop Cillian Murphy in there, it'll almost be the best by default, So the only thing it wouldn't have is probably the surprise that people had in 2002, I think it was, for the iconography of the empty streets and things like that. That's the only thing that it could never, ever recapture. But other than that, I think it's got a great chance. And so, buzzing about that, book those tickets. Little sip of my juice. Just a note to say, in the last couple of weeks, I've rewatched Conclave, Truman Show, National Treasure, and Something's Gotta Give, right? And we'll come on to, I'd like to talk about National Treasure specifically. I watched National Treasure. By the way, Conclave, 4 stars. Truman Show, 5 stars. Something's Gotta Give, 3.5 stars. And that's all I'll say about that. National Treasure, 4 to 4.5 stars, based purely on nostalgia, but also on quality, right? I rewatched National Treasure because it was in preparation for The Fountain of Youth coming out, which is the new Guy Ritchie movie on Apple TV, starring John Krasinski, Natalie Portman, and Domhnall Gleeson, actually, randomly, in this kind of globe-trotting, post-Indiana Jones, post-fucking Uncharted, post-National Treasure world, trying to go down those similar lines, right? And National Treasure is brilliant, and it was great preparation to remind me that my review on Letterboxd, follow me on Letterboxd, was absolutely exceptional bullshit, right? And that is a good thing. That is proudly what it is. And it's not... I used to think of it as a guilty pleasure. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's a kid's movie and blah, blah. I saw it when I was a teenager, I should say. And I thought, oh, this is great, but I'm trying to become a more like highbrow movie lover, even at the time. How much can I really love this? You know that phase when you're younger where you're like, oh, I need to be liking important things. And then you get older and you're like, fucking National Treasure, bro. Get it on, right? I did a TikTok about that once. I should repost that for the clout. But no, it's actually good. Like rewatching it, it's like it is exceptional bullshit. Like Nick Cage is really holding it all together. You got a bit of Sean Bean. Like you can never go wrong with Sean Bean. And the kind of journey through the code breaking is legible, really. Like it's not, obviously it's bullshit, but it's not like Da Vinci Code bullshit. Like it's not like you don't understand the step to step to step. And I love it when these things, similar to the Da Vinci Code, when they weave these things in and around real life artifacts. Like that's such a cool thing because especially as a teenager, you were kind of thinking, oh, is there some truth to this? You know what I mean? Obviously there fucking isn't. Which brings me on to The Fountain of Youth, like I say. And The Fountain of Youth fucking sucks, right? So I don't want to spend that long on it purely because of how much it fucking sucked. The main issue is in that logic of the clues. So they're going to look for the Fountain of Youth. The logic of the clues is so fucking bullshit. Like there's a certain point where they're trying to understand the significance of this letter V. And for some reason, in the same scene, it's aligned with constellations, Roman numerals, the Bible, and old kings of England, right? And don't even ask me to justify that because I don't fucking know, okay? But basically, you can't even follow the fun of this nonsensical plot about clues and whatnot. And this is all around like quite a beguiling tone. Like Guy Ritchie, we know what we all know him for, and it's fine if he wants to do different things. I feel like Sherlock Holmes was the time where he really stepped out and tried to marry his sensibility with a Hollywood sensibility. But this is too far removed, Guy. Like, you're starting to feel like a jobbing director for hire, a gun for hire, like someone who's just thrown in there for a big wad of cash. And I'll say again, I have no problem with people earning money for jobs that they're in demand for, and he is in demand. I just mean that's all he's there for. I just feel like, because I'm not feeling a sense of his character, his sensibility in there anymore. Even the action scenes, like there's a bike chase, sorry. It feels not only derivative of like Indiana Jones, it feels derivative of like fucking Tintin. Do you remember the fucking animated Tintin that Steven Spielberg did and there's a bike chase? It feels like not even as good as that. It feels so plastic and so lacking in weight and heft and authenticity or practicality, even when maybe it was done practically. But that brings me on to the final point, which is that in the final scene, spoiler alert, they find the Fountain of Youth. The CGI used in this final scene to communicate the Fountain of Youth and everything that it's doing to Domhnall Gleeson, who's the character who gets to drink from it, is so fucking insane. The CGI sucks balls. It sucks buttholes, right? It's similar. Imagine the CGI, because I'm saying imagine because please don't watch this. Imagine the CGI that you saw at the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the fourth Indiana Jones film. It's kind of like that. Like, kind of like, you know when sci-fi fantasy meshes with what's supposed to be grounded action adventure. It just doesn't fucking work. And that's another thing that National Treasure did really well. Like, they were only ever just opening tombs and finding treasures and seeing engravings and scriptures on the Declaration of Independence and old masonry pipes and things like it's like things that are tangible and tactile. As soon as you start CGI and water wrapping around Domhnall Gleeson, I'm out, bro. I'm out. So I give this fucker 1 star on Letterboxd. Hashtag follow me on Letterboxd. And I'd like to talk about John Krasinski particularly. John Krasinski couldn't be more plainly doing a Ryan Reynolds impression, really, during Fountain of Youth. It's actually quite jarring, which is interesting because John Krasinski is obviously known, he got known for doing a comedic role. Where I think the problem is in The Office, the US, where I think the problem is here is that comedic role was a reserved comedic role that was supposed to be a reflection of the audience's sensibility, right? Including Tim from The Office in the UK. Like, the US equivalent of that character that John Krasinski played is the vector for the audience to be like, look at these crazy people and I'm the only normal person here. Him and Pam, obviously. And I think the problem is that so you'd think, okay, John Krasinski is a comedic force, right, on screen. He's actually not. He's obviously got the time in and he understands comedy because, I mean, he doesn't need to prove that. But in Fountain of Youth, he's playing like an asshole. He's playing the Ryan Reynolds asshole. And it actually doesn't suit him. And that's exactly why he was cast correctly in The Office as the down-to-earth comedic character. The asshole, it can only really be Ryan Reynolds and someone else who we'll come on to. And it just wasn't fucking working. Which brings me on to the trailer for Honey Don't, which is a new film starring, oh fuck, I've forgotten the female lead in it. Shit. But it's a comedy directed by Ethan Coen coming out starring Chris Evans. And Chris Evans, the point I'm trying to make here is Chris Evans also stars in a role that looks like it was also a Ryan Reynolds role. He's kind of like a crazy flamboyant preacher, right? Looks like he's got kind of like a shady, seedy preacher as well. And the reason why I'm saying it's a Ryan Reynolds role is because I do think up until very recently, Ryan Reynolds occupied a space in Hollywood where he was the good-looking guy who could do asshole comedy, right? I think his star has fallen from grace a little bit recently with the Blake Lively association and all that's going on there. And you could also argue that Ryan Gosling occupies this space a lot too, but he does it in a more kind of friendly, affable way, whereas Ryan Reynolds is the asshole way, right? Anyway, he's vacated that space due to his Deadpool career, really. Like, he has no interest in performing in something that is not owned by him, it feels like. Like, he is Deadpool, he plays the asshole in Deadpool, a lovable asshole, and blah, 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 right? And he also does his football club ownership. I've forgotten which club it is. And so, look, I'm going to wrap all these threads up. Chris Evans is now playing that role in Honey Don't. And I think that Chris Evans needs to fill this space, I guess is the point I'm making. He needs to be the Krasinski role in Fountain of Youth. Ryan Reynolds is gone, and Chris Evans needs to move away from the Marvel Association, do more of the style role he did in Knives Out, which also could have been a Ryan Reynolds role. It's kind of the kind of subtly comedic, but potentially unhinged, asshole, good-looking guy. And this interests me because I have cottoned onto this like concept of market correction, which I've heard on another movie podcast, which I love, called The Rewatchables, which is this sense of, it's kind of a bit of a legacy sense of like the star system, and like when you're making a action film, who do you go to first? Let's say, for argument's sake, Tom Cruise. If Tom Cruise isn't available, who do you go to next, right? And then if they're not available, who do you go to next? And sometimes you'll have this feeling of like there's a market correction, and so a market correction example might be Jim Carrey was like the lead comedic force, male comedic force in the 90s and noughties. But he was kind of market corrected by Steve Carell, right? Not dissimilar in age. And you can see the baton being passed in the scene in Bruce Almighty where Steve Carell is doing the that thing, right? When those two meet in that film, and then Steve Carell goes on to do Evan Almighty. I know it sounds like I'm narrativizing this sense of like passing the baton, and I am. But it just intrigues me, this feeling of like Hollywood has almost an invisible list at all times of like, who's our go-to? Who's our go-to for this? So like previously their go-to kind of female action star would be Gal Gadot. But now, especially with Ballerina coming out, you'd say it's Ana de Armas. You know, she did a role in No Time to Die. And this market correction is constantly happening. So right now, Timothée Chalamet is the go-to guy for basically the leading man role, because he's covered his tracks with Dune. And look, I'm babbling. Ryan Reynolds was the go-to guy. The space is now vacant. Ryan Reynolds is not going to get cast as much because of the Blake Lively thing. He's too committed to Deadpool life and his football club. It needs to be Chris Evans. It cannot be John Krasinski, because John Krasinski can't do it because he fucking sucked in Phantom Youth. Oh my fucking God, that was such a whirlwind of a rant. Fuck me. And I really hope it makes sense. As a tag onto that, I saw an advert. Fucking hell. I saw a trailer for The Paper, which is a TV show. I think it was on Peacock that's coming out. And it said, The Paper, from the universe of The Office. And the segue from the previous conversation is the Krasinski connection. From the universe of The Office is a US show called The Paper that is apparently derived from the universe of The Office, which notoriously was in a paper, paper merchant's office, right? At least the UK one was. Was the US one? Anyway, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. Don't fucking do this. Do not fucking do this, okay? A Marvel Cinematic Universe doing so well at the box office up until Endgame is maybe the worst thing that happened to long-form movie and TV content. Like, it's just exhausting, okay? Ballerina. Just spoke about it. Ballerina in the universe of John Wick. Or you've got Amazon buying James Bond and almost certainly going to do a universe of that. They'll pump at least one Bond film out to be like, hey guys, everything's fine, it's all the same. And then they'll come out with the Moneypenny spin-off, the Q spin-off, and we have a universe of that. We have Sherlock Holmes and is it Enola Holmes? Is it? We have the Star Wars universe. We knew that was a core kind of 9-episode thing, and then they branch out a little bit with Rogue Nation and Solo, and we're kind of accepting of that. And then they branch out further with Mandalorian, and thankfully it's quite good. And then they branch out more into TV, again copying. Again, it's all Disney, I guess, but copying their own tracks then with the Marvel going into TV. And it starts to take the sheen off the product, and now we've got upcoming movies being written, and they don't have the prestige because you've diluted the product with this universe approach to everything. Like, not everything needs to be a fucking universe, right? Do you remember when? Oh my God, Tom Cruise is back on my lips. Do you remember when Tom Cruise tried to start that Dark Forces universe? Was it or Monsters universe by doing the Mummy? And it just tanked. And that's such a funny moment in Tom Cruise's career. how like he still kind of wasn't really choosing his projects. It was funny. It was quite recently as well, 2012. Anyway, hey guys, we don't need something from the universe of The Office. The Office was The Office and it went on for 50 billion fucking seasons. Okay. Another thing I'm excited about, 2 more things to go. We've got 1 more trailer and then Tom Cruise. Another thing I'm excited about is The Materialists, the new film from Celine Song, starring Dakota Fanning and Pedro Pascal. Oh, and I think Chris Evans. Yes. No, I think, again, this speaks to my previous point. Exactly, right? Anyway, I think this film is a return to form for a return of the genre of rom-coms, which I'm so excited about. The trailer looks straight up rom-com. And this is what happens with the cycle of everything, right? I'm a big music lover, a big electronic music lover. And what you'll find, as with every genre of music, is that like there'll be an era of house, and then there'll be an era of techno, and then 5 years will pass, and that will kind of get too hard for the techno heads, and so they'll go back to kind of tech house, minimal techno, and then they'll kind of suddenly the cool thing to like is disco, and then we're back around, and then it'll be trance again, then techno, and it always cycles around, right? The rom-com is due a cycle. It is due a cycle, and comedies in general, because we had such a great era of comedies in the noughties and early tens with in Britain it was the Shaun of the Dead Hot Fuzz era, but in America it was the 40-Year-Old Virgin Superbad era. And that died away because that was not so much a rom-com, but a development of the rom-com sensibility, where it was slightly more crude, more adult, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this, Celine Song's Materialists, is how the rom-com is going to come back around and be cool again. Because what it needed, and it clicked as soon as I saw this trailer, what the rom-com genre needed was not something more crazy, edgy, off the wall. And there has been a few good ones of those in recent years, but they haven't quite hit because it feels too derivative of the noughties and tens. What it needed was an excellent auteur, artist, creative, director to take on the genre and do something genuinely special with it. Just like The Worst Person in the World a couple of years ago. One of my favourite films of that year. One of my favourite films ever. The Worst Person in the World. Go check it out. That was the start of this momentum, I think. And The Materialists is going to just keep pushing that on. And my prediction is in 5 years, rom-coms will be getting smashed out ad nauseum, just like they were 15 years ago. It's kind of also off the back of Anyone But You and No Hard Feelings, and there's just flickers of this genre coming back, and I'm so fucking excited. Okay, we're nearly done. Let's fucking do this. Tom Cruise. I'm finishing off with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise loves popcorn, and that makes me laugh. This is something that me and my mate have been laughing about for about 3 years, because there was a video that came out on YouTube, which was Tom Cruise sat in what appears to be a yellow waiting room on a sole leather sofa in an empty room, eating a giant bucket of popcorn and going, "There's only a few things I love in life: movies and popcorn. Movies and popcorn." Right? So me and my mate, whenever we're excited about a film, like the 28 Years Later, for example, we'll just text each other like popcorn, like just movies and popcorn, like that. And it makes me laugh so much that on this press run, like you will ask him a random question, and he will always bring it back to movies and popcorn. So me and my mate have been laughing about it this entire Mission press run. Like I saw one literally 10 minutes ago. Someone said, "Oh, Father's Day is coming up. What's the perfect Father's Day for you?" And he goes, just out there making movies, popcorn, having fun." He says, right? What I like about it is twofold. It's like on the one hand, he doesn't know what to say because he doesn't want to talk about his personal life, and so all he's got in the back of his mind is popcorn. And then on the other hand, me and my mate love the fact that he is actually obsessed with popcorn because he is just a robot with no life, and all he actually cares about is popcorn. It's like a double-sided thing that I find so fucking funny. And then a video came out, please go find it on YouTube, of Tom Cruise just before he got announced to come on stage at the BFI IMAX to introduce Fallout, which had been voted to be screened. And someone filmed him from the front row in the wings. And he's got a giant bucket of popcorn and he's eating it in this really funny way where he's like, he grabs it like with like a huff almost. He like gets a huff and almost grabs it like one of those claws in an amusement arcade that doesn't quite grab it properly. And he kind of grabs it and he just like tosses it into his face. Like there's a whole screen of people watching him eat popcorn, and he's not doing it right, bro. He's not doing it right. He's like kind of clawing it and he's like throwing it in his face. Just one by one, mate. Like, are you that hungry? Have you not had time to eat on the private jet back from Cannes? Like, fucking calm down, mate. So on the one hand, I'm like, is he just such a weirdo that he doesn't know how to eat popcorn? Or on the other hand, I'm like, is he that busy that he actually has to get his meal in? And he's that hungry that he's literally shoving it into his face. Look, I'm really going to try and not talk about Tom Cruise next week. But this man fascinates me to the very core. I might start a separate podcast called Tom Cruising. Okay? And this is the final point. It makes me laugh so much looking at the box office numbers for Final Reckoning. I wish no ill will on Tom Cruise or Final Reckoning, but it makes me laugh so much that he has once again fallen short of being number one at the box office or being the box office main character because of another big movie. When he came out with Dead Reckoning, brackets part 1, he was Oppenheimered. He was Barbenheimered. He came out, he had the IMAX screens for a fucking day, and then Barbenheimer, boom, took them all. And any movie nerd hysteria that was towards Dead Reckoning was swept up by Oppenheimer and Barbie immediately. All the movie nerds, gaggling geese, just wandered over there. No one cared about Dead Reckoning anymore. And Tom Cruise, that kicked Tom Cruise in the fucking nuts, right? He hated it. I don't have any evidence of this, but he hated losing out to Barbenheimer, a cinematic experience, a cinematic event, because he wants to be the cinematic event. Everything in his entire being wants to be the cinematic event. I'm literally going lightheaded. I've been ranting so hard in this episode. So really, I'm going to try and close it out. This entire press run for Final Reckoning has been in an attempt to be the main character of media for as long as possible. And yet, he still has not beaten Lilo and Stitch at the box office. That makes me laugh. Lilo and Stitch, bro. Yes, it's IP, but it's just IP for kids, and he's been doing Mission Impossible for fucking 50 billion years, and he can't beat it at the box office. Again, I wish no ill will on Tom Cruise or Final Reckoning. I enjoyed my cinematic experience on the whole. Go back to the last episode to listen to the full review of that. But did you notice that on this press run, he was really trying to cozy up to the films around Final Reckoning's release in order for the same thing to not happen again. So when Sinners came out before, he took a promo picture next to the poster of Sinners with a fucking bucket of popcorn because he wanted he wanted everyone to know, yes, you're all loving Sinners, but I'm fucking coming. I'm coming soon. Think about me. He's doing his job, don't get me wrong. But again, I was chatting with my mate, the same mate that I've mentioned this entire episode, because I only have one friend. And he said he got that publicity photo at Sinners because his ego can't take the fact that Sinners might outperform Final Reckoning. And I said, haha, good point. He's like, fuck, am I getting Oppenheimered again? But in reverse, like Oppenheimer came and snatched all his IMAX screens. And now he's like, oh no, his Cinna's going to keep all the IMAX screens? Obviously it didn't in the end. But you know what I mean? Like, is it going to perform that well in IMAX that people are kind of a bit exhausted of going to the cinema and they maybe won't go the next month? Because some people only have like 3 cinema trips a year in them, right? So he's like, oh my God, am I going to get Oppenheimer? I've got to take a picture with this Sinners poster so everyone fucking remembers that it's me. I said, I think he takes it well because it must be fucking infuriating. He gives his heart and soul to cinema and he's come immediately before and after seismic cinematic events both times. Because Sinners was a bigger cinematic event than Final Reckoning, in my opinion. Or it ended up being because it was a better film for a start. And it's like, and I said, normally cinema going is absolute gash and deserted. Like, there's nothing coming out. The best you're going to get is like a throwaway horror flick, like Drop or Companion. And then every fucking time Tom Cruise wants to drop a movie, he gets Oppenheimered. And that is so, like, bitterly funny to me. I feel sorry for him, and it makes me laugh at the same time. And it's because, as well, I wrote this in this message. Maverick's performance made him hard. It made him rock hard. Okay, he had a party in his pants because he was like, what? 1.46 billion earned at the box office for Maverick? Maybe this is me. Maybe me in my 50s and late 50s and going into my 60s. Maybe I am now everything that I ever had the potential to be. I am the box office king. Because if you look at the history of the box office for the Mission franchise, it's not as strong as you think. It's actually like, I think Fallout is the most with like $700 million. And then the rest are kind of 400, 500 million. But somehow they've managed to still keep getting financed and keep getting higher budgets for some reason. This last one was $400 million budget, despite the fact the Mission movies barely make over 500 most of the time. Anyway, Maverick smashed the box office and got a higher box office than anything Tom Cruise has maybe ever done, or certainly done for a long time. And he must have thought, this is me now. I'm the fucking king. Dead Reckoning comes out, gets Oppenheimered. Final Reckoning comes out, gets Synod and Lilo and Stitched. Lilo and fucking Stitched. Anyway, hope it does well. Hope it does well because I want to see more Tom Cruise movies. Right. Anyone who's listening, I'm literally putting my hands over my eyes right now. I feel exhausted. What the fuck just happened? I feel like I'm waking up from a fever dream. 40 minutes of ranting. I feel so lightheaded. Christ. This was Foth. Fred on film. Fred Asquith on film, right? Follow me on Letterboxd at Fred Asquith. Follow me on YouTube if you're listening to this at Fred Asquith YT. Go have a look. There's a video version. If you're watching this, go subscribe to the audio version because it's a lot easier to see tangibly who's actually listening to this on the audio version. Listen however you like, but just go subscribe over there as well, right? Fred Asquith on film on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, Fountain of Youth was a 1-star on Letterboxd, by the way. I forgot to mention that. I'll see you next time. I'm really interested in doing more rankings, actually. I enjoyed ranking the mission stunts last time. So let me know what rankings you'd like to hear from me, especially in regard to upcoming movies. Maybe we could rank something in regards to 28 Years or F1. Could it be zombie movies? Could it be high-speed action movies? Let me know. That would be really exciting. Okay, thanks for coming. I really appreciate you being here. I'm seeing this grow, and it's really nice to see it grow. God, I've been slouching this whole time. Thanks so much, guys. See you. Bye-bye.